Did pop music make us musically dumb and mediocre? Jazz is crap. It is the expressively stunted, coldly artificial meandering of narcissistic, pseudo-intellectual posers. It is to music as flatulence is to oratory. I really hate classical music. I never listen to it in my own free will, and I avoid concerts like the plague. And whenever I try to listen to it, I got bored of it super fast and never made it all the way through. These are all real quotes taken from online subreddits and music forums. People can be extremely dismissive towards genres of music that they're foreign to. This, in essence, is what my talk will be about today. So why do I care? What brought my attention to all of these narcissistic classical musicians, these elitist jazz musicians, and these hardcore pop fans? Well, I was watching La La Land the other day, and in the jazz bar scene where the protagonist Mia says, "What about elevator music, jazz music that I know from my life?" To which the jazz musician Sebastian responds, "That's part of the problem. You have to see it. You have to see what's at stake." And this kind of brought me back to my own musical journey, where I was once like Mia. I didn't understand jazz or classical music. I thought it was boring, too hard to listen to, difficult to understand. And then I became one of those jazz musicians, like the ones on the first few slides. And I thought that jazz music was the only good music. Everything else was crap. And I pushed away everyone else that disagreed with my opinion. Needless to say, 8th grade me didn't have a lot of friends. So what brought me back? What brings me here today? What changed me? Well, listening to some of Jacob Collier's music and how he uses complex harmonies in his music and contemporary sounds kind of eased me back into pop music, as well as going out to karaoke with my friends, reintroduced me into pop music, and showed me that, as dumb as some people may call it, it's actually really enjoyable. And today, I listen to all kinds of music, from jazz, blues, rock, reggae, K-pop, J-pop, and you name it. And even Spotify told me last year in their rap that I listened to 59 new genres last year, which I didn't know that many genres existed. But this still doesn't really explain why it's my business to care about what other people are listening to. And so to talk a little bit more about myself, music has been a really big part of my life. I've played, listened to, experienced, and enjoyed so many different kinds of music over the years. And it's given me some of my most favorite memories, as well as some friendships that I will cherish forever. And to put it short, I want you guys here in the audience today to have the same experience with this thing that has saved and enriched my life. And I believe that the way we categorize music into different genres and push them away, like them, dislike them, critique them, is pushing us away from enjoying music to the fullest. So going back to the main topic, why is it so bad that people are calling pop music to be dumb, jazz music to be crap, or classical music to be boring? Well, to put it shortly, it's ignorant. So if there's any of you in the audience today that has kind of struggled to enjoy or listen to classical music, I want to ask you the question. Have you really thought about what classical music means? The term and genre classical music can mean so many different things. From the really organized and structured music of Pachelbel, like in Canon in D, to the sad, dramatic, devastating music that you see in Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, to some of the ethereal, cloudy, and dreamy music of Clair de Lune by Debussy. Classical music can mean so many different things, which is why all these pieces that I've shown today can be further subdivided into different eras and different genres of classical music, because they sound so distinctly different. And there's so many more of these subgenres, and there's so many more of these classical pieces. I'm sure that everyone is bound to find at least one piece of music that they enjoy, right? How about when someone says that jazz is crap, difficult to listen to, hard to understand? Well, I understand when someone says some of the modal works by Miles Davis, like The Sorcerer on the right, is hard to understand, and I don't understand why that won't go mainstream. But there are some jazz music that everyone is exposed to, and everyone seems to like the Cantina Band music from Star Wars A New Hope, or Jump Up Superstar from Super Mario Odyssey. There's clearly an audience there, yet people dismiss it, calling it difficult to understand, just because they associate jazz music to be the music with the one on the right, when it encompasses some of their favorite music, like the one on the left. So to those of you who don't listen to those kinds of music yet, I'd like to show an example using pop music. When someone says pop is dumb or dismisses pop music, they're in essence grouping together WAP by Cardi B, Perfect by Ed Sheeran, and Cupid by 50/50. Now I'm sure you all know in this room that all three of these songs sound incredibly different. And there's so many more different pop music that people will be pushing away, so many different kinds of music that people are pushing away when they dismiss pop music as dumb. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily enjoy all these songs that I've shown here today. Neither am I saying that you guys have to either. But I hope you understand by now that by dismissing an entire genre, whether it be classical, jazz, or pop, you're dismissing away so many different kinds of music that you're potentially missing out on, something that you'll really enjoy. This gets even more complicated just because the definitions as to what pop music is can be very vague and very gray. Pop music, in essence, is any music that's popular today. Ghostbusters is a song that came out 40 years ago, but it's still top 50 in the Spotify charts. Does that make Ghostbusters pop music? Now I can hear some of you saying, you're using extreme examples. Obviously, the way that music is categorized into genres doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's try looking at a much more specific genre, a much more niche genre, and compare two songs together. These two songs are both from the genre of disco music. On the right, we have September by Earth, Wind & Fire, and on the left, we have We Are Family by Sister Sledge. Now, if you've listened to both of these songs before, you might think that they sound a little similar. But if we actually look at them more closely, you'll find that these songs are about completely different things. They tell their narrative in a completely different way. They use different instruments, different chords, different grooves, different keys, and the list goes on. They're similar, but definitely not the same. Assuming that you don't like We Are Family just because you didn't like September would kind of be like assuming you don't like marinara pasta just because you didn't like bolognese. And assuming you don't like all of disco music, or even all of pop music just because you didn't like September, would kind of be like assuming you don't like all of pasta just because you didn't like bolognese. Similar, but not the same. This gets even more complicated, just because one piece of music and one artist can draw inspiration from so many different genres. Going back to September, even though it's classified as a disco song, it draws inspiration from soul, R&B, blues, rock and roll, jazz, and so many more. And I believe that this is what makes music music. This is what allows music to evolve, for new sounds to be created, new genres to form. This is what makes music great. And this is what allows for one artist to create a diversity of songs. Another one, Bites the Dust, sounds way different than Bohemian Rhapsody, which sounds way different than We Will Rock You. Now, all this criticism of music and genres and their incapability to categorize the music that they're in kind of begs the question, how are we supposed to assess music then? If I'm not allowed to say, I hate classical music, or that I think classical music is boring, then how am I supposed to assess or critique or even create my own distinct music taste? Easy. By a song-to-song basis. Instead of saying, I hate classical music, try saying, some of Pachelbel's works during the Baroque era, like Canon and D, you find to be a little repetitive. Instead of saying, I hate jazz, or jazz is crap, try saying that some of Miles Davis's modal works, such as Sorcerer, you find to be a little difficult to understand. Instead of saying, pop is dumb, try saying that Cupid by 50/50 you find to be a little overproduced. Obviously, there's a reason we don't do this. It's extremely inconvenient. Even though it may not necessarily be accurate, there's a reason why we categorize music into different genres and assess music by genres and artist bases, and critique, love, and communicate by genres and artist bases. There's a reason why we categorize things, whether it's food, music, movies, TV, or much more controversially, people. We categorize things into broad and narrow groups, and we assess them. We might have prejudices or stereotypes against them. But it's necessary in understanding and communicating this incredibly diverse world around us. There's a term in psychology called the representative heuristic. In its most basic form, it's a survival mechanic. You see a red mushroom with white spots, you eat it, the next day you get incredibly sick. Next time you see a red mushroom with white spots, you're probably not going to eat it, because you assume and associate red mushrooms with white spots as something that gets you sick, something to avoid, something not to eat. But it's also the phenomenon that causes gender and racial stereotypes. If you see a person of a certain skin color with a certain set of characteristics, or hear about a person with a certain skin color and a certain set of characteristics, the next time you see another person with a certain set of the same skin color, you're going to associate them with the same set of characteristics. And music is just a microcosm of this phenomenon. If you hear one boring piece of classical music, the next time that someone recommends you a piece of classical music, you're probably not going to listen to it, just because you associate classical music with something that's boring, something that's repetitive, something that you don't enjoy. Now, to this point, my speech may seem incredibly inconclusive, and that's because I myself am still learning how to interact with this thing that I love called music. But if there's one thing that I want you guys to take away today, the next time someone recommends you classical music, or jazz music, or dare I say, Taylor Swift, maybe give it a listen. Sure, you might have listened to 100 crowd jazz, 100 dumb pop, and 100 boring classical music. The 101st time, you might find a diamond in the rough. You might find something that you'll enjoy. So dare I say, maybe give it a try. Thank you.